Shalom, today is November 27th. It is 5:25 p.m. here in Israel, 10:25 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States. It is the 52nd day of the war. Let's jump in with good news to start off. So first off, the ceasefire has given Israel time to prepare for further attacks in Gaza once the ceasefire ends, which should be tomorrow. Once that happens, then Israel will go on major offensives, as we discussed yesterday, both in central Gaza and eventually down into southern Gaza. And because of that, Iran is trying to distract Israel from being able to prepare, because due to the ceasefire, Israel can prepare without having to worry about Hamas attacks. So therefore, in the north, in the Golan Heights, and along the Syrian and the Lebanese borders, Hezbollah has begun major attacks, but Israel has warded them all off. And Yemen is trying to distract Israel as well by sending rockets and drones over to Israel. Somebody, we don't know exactly who, attacked an American base in Syria, assuming it's Hezbollah, not sure. And in retaliation, America has carried out over 100 attacks in Syria, 100 attacks in the last couple of days in Syria. Which clearly shows that America is in the region now, not only to intimidate and not only to threaten, but to carry out threats and carry out attacks against forces that are putting American forces in danger. So they're doing so at their own peril. I'm not really sure why you would start up with the United States of America, but they're doing it at their own risk. There were drone attacks sent by Yemen to Eilat through the Red Sea. F-35s patrolling, Israeli F-35s patrolling the Red Sea, knocked those out. So those were ineffective. The Elon Musk, the owner of X and many other companies, is visiting Israel today. You might think that that's not a big story, but you have to keep in mind that Elon Musk is because of his wealth and because of his control, was one of the biggest influencers, much more than many world leaders in his sphere, and therefore the Israeli government pays very crucial attention to making sure that he is pro-Israel. He is pro-Israel. There are a lot of rumors out there that he's anti-Semitic. He is not. He does allow anti-Semitism on his platform, but he's a big free speech proponent. So he is visiting the South, putting his own life at danger by visiting what's going on. He's touring with Prime Minister Netanyahu. This comes after a day of Prime Minister Netanyahu doing something that no Israeli Prime Minister has ever done, which is visit a war zone in Gaza, which he did yesterday. United States aircraft carrier Eisenhower is in the Red Sea. We discussed this yesterday. This is the third carrier strike force in the region, and this is there solely to stop Yemen and Iranian ships from pirating and hijacking ships inside the Red Sea. The Red Sea is south of Israel and goes from Yemen all the way up till Eilat. The three major Hamas commanders were killed. Obviously not in the last couple of days because there's been a ceasefire, but Hamas has admitted this. This causes mass chaos in the Hamas ranks. Hamas has very difficult time now preparing for after the ceasefire. They don't have a decision-making process because their commanders have been killed. And Israel, by cutting off their communications and killing their commanders, is making the job much easier for themselves, because now they're fighting against a terrorist force that really has nobody directing it. And in addition, Israel hit Damascus airport, which stops Iranian weapon shipments coming in from Iran through the Syrian airport, flown into the Syrian airport, and then transferred to Hezbollah, and then eventually either stays with Hezbollah or then makes its way down to Hamas. By blowing up these sites, which Israel's been doing regularly the last couple of years, especially in the Damascus airport, whenever one of those shipments come in, Israeli intelligence picks up on these shipments coming across and is able to blow them up beforehand, and that stops the resupply of Hamas and Hezbollah, which is an essential strategic goal of Israel, to make sure that these countries these terrorist organizations cannot get more weapons to resupply, especially during the ceasefire. On to some bad news. The European Union's foreign affairs chief. The European Union is the entity that of all the European countries together, they have their own foreign affairs chief. His name is Joseph Borrell. So he criticized Israel for taking Israel's passing a budget now. It has to pass a budget every year, and it's passing a budget now. And inside this budget is money to build Jewish towns in Judea and Samaria, what the world calls settlements inside the West Bank. He criticized it and said that it weakens Israel and weakens its security status. I challenge anybody to explain why Jews living inside of Judea and Samaria and building Judea and Samaria weakens our security? The answer that a lot of people will give is because when we continuously build settlements, it upsets Palestinians. Anyone that knows anything about Palestinians know that they don't consider the West Bank, Judea and Samaria theirs. They consider from the river to the sea, all of it. In which case, they're just as upset if Jews build in Tel Aviv, which they consider theirs, even though Jews built the city, just as much as they do where I live in Mitzvah Yericho. Haters are haters, anti-Semites are anti-Semites, Palestinian terrorists are terrorists. It's not going to make a difference where we build. They want us out of the entire land. This idea that settlements, because they're in Judea and Samaria, and that's where the European Union and the international community has deemed where Palestinians one day will have a state, that's what's going to upset Palestinians, but other areas won't, is just a figment of the imagination of these European diplomats and unfortunately American diplomats. It doesn't exist in reality. What causes Israel to be unsafe is Palestinian terrorism, not Israeli actions. An article came out that the White House has officials inside, people that work for the President of the United States, as lower level advisors who do not agree with the president's strong pro-Israel stance and are asking them to reconsider. And they have gotten rejected. Makes sense. Ballistic missiles fired at an American ship inside of the Red Sea, a ship from Yemen. Again, I do not understand why anybody would dare start up with the United States of America. One piece of analysis before we get on to an update about hostages. A lot of people are saying that we see how diplomacy, the deals worked out between Hamas and through Qatar and the United States representing Israel in these negotiations, how it shows that so much could be done and so much can be accomplished through diplomacy, through talking, as opposed to through military might. What these people miss out on the fact is the only reason why Hamas felt that it had to negotiate was because Israel used military might. To think that if Israel had just simply said, let's talk about it, and then Hamas would have been like, okay, what can we do for you, is the tops of naivety. Okay, let's go on to hostages. So far, 40 hostages have been returned. They are expected between 10 and 13 tonight, depending on who you listen to. I'm assuming it's going to be 11. Hamas hostages. One thing that we learned was, from the hostages that have been returned. There was a Russian hostage that talked about. He openly talked about most hostages are not talking about it. This person had no problem talking about it. He talked about how hostages have broken free. He broke free for 4 days. And but then was caught by other Palestinians, not Hamas members, and handed over back to Hamas, which kind of strengthens the point that I've been making the entire time, which is that there are no such things. So there are very few, maybe there are. I don't want to generalize, but there are no such things as innocent Palestinians in this battle. There are either supporters of Hamas or not. And when these people handed over this hostage back to Hamas after he escaped, they became complicit in his kidnapping and all other kidnappings because they support the kidnappings. Okay, the first American hostage was returned last night. It's been curious to Americans why every other nationality, including Russia, is having their hostages returned from Thailand and the Philippines, but not from America, which is the world's power. You would think that Hamas should cower in its place and want to appease the United States, but American power doesn't seem to be what it once was, and they're not intimidated, and they're holding a lot more Americans hostage. But the Hamas wants to extend the ceasefire for another 4 days in exchange for 20 hostages, 20 more Israeli hostages. The problem is that the original deal was that that Israel be willing to extend the ceasefire for 1 day for every 10 hostages. So this would be 50% of the hostages that they're offering from the original deal. Be interesting to see if Israel accepts it. And one of the hostages was an elderly woman who is doing a little better this morning. She wasn't doing so well in the hospital. She was released, very sick. She was asked to get medicine from excuse my daughter coming through. She was asked to get for her family tried getting her medicine. She went 7 weeks without medicine. Is now in the hospital, but she is recovering, thank God. The International Red Cross refused to allow her to get medicine to her to their mother. That's the Red Cross for you. Okay, one point to make: the Palestinians that are freed in these hostage deals, these are not criminals. They were not captives. These are terrorists. These are people that tried to kill people. They tried to kill Jews in terrorist acts. Some of them used explosives. Some of them used bullets. Some of them used stabbings. And there's no equation. You start seeing a lot of times that newscasters are using they're equating the difference between the captives and the prisoners. There's no equation between them. You have terrorists versus innocent people that were taken hostage. Okay, let's get to your questions here. Okay. And let's see here. So first is, why is Iran supplying Hamas? Iran supplies Hamas because they are both evil. Iran wants to destroy Israel, and Hamas wants to destroy Israel, so Iran supplies. And Hamas becomes a proxy of Iran. Iran pays for Hamas activities, and then Hamas does what Iran wants. And that's what you're seeing now. These attacks are exactly what Iran wants. What measures are being taken by organizations to ensure the safety and secure release of the hostages? I'm not sure what that means. In terms of the other hostages, they're not part of the deal. Organizations don't seem to be doing much because they're still hostages. So I'm not sure. Let's see. Go on here. Okay. How is the United States blocking the trading and restocking of supplies given to Hamas and Hezbollah? America blocks trading and stocking the supplies through its ships. If any Iranian ship tries to come and resupply Hamas or Hezbollah, the United States will blow it up. Iran hasn't been running things by the ships because they know it'll be blown up, so they're not trying. So the Mediterranean is not able to be used, and now the Red Sea, because America stuck an aircraft carrier, the Eisenhower, in the Red Sea, it also can't be used. Okay, how can Israel ensure that Hamas is not going to withhold hostages to try to leverage a better deal? Very simple. If Hamas withholds hostages, the ceasefire ends within a couple of hours, and Israel starts massively bombing Hamas. Very simple. That's the incentive. Is it true that when the 4-day pause started, Hamas launched rockets into Israel? There was one rocket launched into Israel about 15 minutes after the ceasefire began. And if it is, was anything done about this? Not publicly. I don't know publicly if it was done. Usually Hamas reneges on its ceasefire agreements pretty soon after, but then keeps them. Since Israel is surrounding the cities of Gaza and is ready to destroy it after the hostages are returned, what will be done with that land? Will Israel take it over, or will it be an independent from the country? So Israel is not looking to take over the Gaza Strip, but it is looking to ensure that that nothing in the Gaza Strip poses a threat to Israel. The first step in doing that is by wiping out Hamas. The second step in doing that is making sure Hamas can't attack anymore by being wiped out, and then making sure that no other terrorist group takes over. But Israel will get out of there as soon as it feels safe and secure. If the Hamas leaders currently in Qatar stay there long after the war is over to remain safe and attempt to rebuild Hamas after Israel destroys it, what measures can Israel take to prevent this, considering they have already signed the deal? Alternatively, is there a time limit to how long they stay in Qatar mentioned in the deal? That's interesting. I'm not sure 100%, but I will say that that Israel can make sure to bomb Hamas if it starts restarting, if it starts a recruitment effort again. Israel will start taking it out. I don't think they're going to wait like they did these past years. What made Hamas lose its ability to perpetrate larger attacks? What changed now that they're only able to perpetrate smaller attacks? So first of all, a lot of Hamas members have been killed. A lot of Hamas weapons have been destroyed, and Hamas communication networks have been destroyed. So Hamas can't coordinate among themselves. If you have two Hamas guys hiding in two different houses, they cannot communicate anymore. So they're not able to carry out larger scale attacks. Isn't it dangerous for the soldiers in Gaza to be doing nothing? No, that's a good question. The soldiers in Gaza are on guard. So if anybody came after them, they would be able to shoot them no problem and be able to kill them and eliminate them as a threat. But they're on guard. They're just not allowed to take offensive measures. Okay, what role does the Red Cross play with hostages, and why are we using the Red Cross? The Red Cross is essentially an Uber, just drives people from place to place. They're unfortunately not playing the role that they're supposed to, which is to ensure that the hostages are safe and sound. Has Israel used the ceasefire to their advantage by preparing in any particular way that wouldn't be possible without a ceasefire? Yes, Israel is planning and setting its troops up and its tanks up for an offensive. It would not be able to do that if there was no ceasefire because they would be under attack by Hamas as they did it. A lot of people, this goes back to a bigger point. A lot of people think that we're opposed to the ceasefire because they said that it gave Hamas a chance to resupply, restock, re-energize, replan. But first of all, most of those things Hamas was not able to do because Israel didn't allow them to, even under the ceasefire, didn't allow them to resupply, and didn't allow them to restock. But even so, Israel was also able to do all those things and do them successfully. They were actually able to do them, and they were able to relax. So the ceasefire was tremendously in Israel's advantage. Plus, we got our hostages back, not all of them, but a lot of them. Did Hamas go against the 4-day ceasefire? What would this do to the hostage exchange? So Hamas went against the ceasefire, but not in such a major way that it caused Israel also to break the ceasefire. Okay. Why did Hamas end the ceasefire after little to no time after the ceasefire even started, if they were asking for it in the first place? Because Hamas is not a logical place. We think like Westerners. We're into freedom. We're into living life. We're into the pursuit of happiness. The Eastern terrorist mindset doesn't believe in the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't believe in life. It sees the greatest goal is giving up your life as a shaheed, as a martyr, and to forget about happiness. They don't believe in that at all. So it's very hard for us with a different value system to try to put ourselves in Hamas's shoes. You have to rethink your entire life and everything that you think is important. So a lot of times we judge Hamas by saying, well, I don't understand why Hamas would do such a thing. I would never do such a thing. Well, it's not a question of what you would do. It's what Hamas would do. And they don't have the same decision-making that we have. Okay. What have been the effects of closing off the West Bank economically? The effects have been all construction basically in Israel has stopped. Major construction has stopped. At least private construction, let's put it that way, has stopped. The Palestinian economy is just about shot. But we haven't seen a rise in violence anymore than you would expect during a war. What has been the attitude of traditionally Zionist Christian groups in the U.S., like evangelicals, towards the war? Evangelical Christians have supported Israel, as they are wont to do. That's what they do. Did Putin intervene and negotiate the release of Ran Kuriol, like Hamas says? Yes, Putin did intervene, and this was a gift to Putin. Hamas announced that they released an Israeli male of military age, something that nobody thought Hamas would do. Okay, and that's the end of our video. If you have any questions, please put them below this video, and I will believe now to try to get to them tomorrow. Shalom, let's have victory, and our hostages and soldiers home safely.